We'll see him on Sunday as the Cardinals take on the Broncos. Howard Balzer joins us now, Cardinals columnist, and he joins us here on the Right to It guest line. How are we doing today, Howard? What's going on?
Doing well. Just counting the days until we get this preseason behind us and get ready for the regular season after the rosters get slashed by about 38 players per team.
So this season going in, there's a lot of praise for Kyler Murray. Are you on that page? You believe from what you could just see in practice that this is a different Kyler than years past?
I think it's a Kyler Murray that is much more on task. I mean, obviously in these previous years, I think there's a little bit of collective amnesia making it seem like this guy's never played good football, which of course he did for some pretty good stretches of time in the first few seasons. And so we've always known the ability that he has. But I think what we have seen is a guy that appears at least more on task, and that comes as much, and a lot of it, guys, to be quite honest, you don't see that much. It's not like all of a sudden you're saying, oh, my, we can see that this guy really knows what he's doing now. I mean, but what you see and what you hear when you talk to him, when you talk to others, even Kelvin Beachum, who, talked about him having to grow up last year, recently said that he's seen a lot of maturity from him and he thinks that he's on the right path. And so from all of those things put together, it looks like, a different guy. And he's admitted to having matured and after this time in the league. But I think a lot of that is, how comfortable he is and the respect he has for the coaching staff, which doesn't only include Jonathan Gannon, obviously, but also Drew Petzing, the coordinator, Israel Wolfert, the quarterback's coach, and all that. And I think he's enthused by the players around him. And that's always a big key for any quarterback. And when you look at the receiver core, when you look at the tight ends, when you look at the running backs, you look at a pretty solid offensive line right now, assuming they can all stay healthy. They've got the makings of being a pretty good offense. I'm not going to sit here, guys, and say, oh, my goodness, they're going to break records and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. But I think they've got the potential to be very, very productive with Kyler Murray, helming that ship, if you will.
How you talked about the pieces around him, and that's what I wanted to get into. I think before, at times, Kyler felt that he had to go win the game himself, running, throwing. I think now, when you talk about looking at this team on paper, specifically offense, all the weapons, at least on paper, that he can manage the game and step up when he has to. He doesn't have to throw a touchdown pass every throw. That's kind of the sense I get in watching Kyler Murray this year, understanding that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a part of it. And I'll go back to that, first part of that, what 2021 season when they were undefeated after 7 games. And I don't know that he felt then that he had to do too much. Certainly he did it when he needed to, but he didn't run as much in the first part of that year. You had DeAndre Hopkins, you had Christian Kirk, you even had A.J. Green, who was contributing, and you had, James Conner and Chase Edmonds at running back, who had a great job share. Now, they didn't have the big names at tight end, that year, and they didn't have a Trey McBride, but they had, decent talent then. And then, of course, he got hurt, and then others got hurt, and the rest of that season was a disaster. And so I think now he looks at this and he sees they don't have a receiver that's as experienced and as top of the game as Hopkins was, but certainly everyone expects Marvin Harrison Jr. to be that. How quickly that'll happen will be interesting to see. But you also saw McBride obviously come on at the end of last year. You had Trey Benson behind James Conner. So I think all of those things, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden Kyler Murray's not, hey, if I got to run, I'm going to run. And, those opportunities are still going to be there. But I definitely, agree with that to a point that, he doesn't have that weight on his shoulder that he's the one, that has to do it all. But I think there's been times in the past where that wasn't, that was the case also. And now it's just kind of getting back to those really good times that there were not that long ago.
Howard Balzer is our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. All right, Howard, so when they finally get to opening up the season in Buffalo against the Bills, a team a lot of people have picked to be right at the top of the standings in the AFC East, the schedule for the first 6-7 games is extremely difficult for this team, meaning the Cardinals. So if you can look into your crystal ball, are they going to be below 500 through the 6 games, even or over 500?
That is a great question, because in that stretch of time, obviously, they're playing several playoff teams, and that's just the reality of it, with Buffalo, with the Rams, with Detroit, maybe a little breather with Washington. Who knows how they're going to be? San Francisco, Green Bay, then the Chargers in Miami. So that's a heck of a stretch. So I would think they should beat Washington, but the bottom line is you have to steal a couple of those games. And that's the danger, and that's the thing you worry about. Man, suppose after, what did I reel off? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 games. I mean, suppose they're 2-5, and all of a sudden they're going to say, they're not that good. They're not as good as everyone thought they were going to be. But that's the NFL. I mean, the NFL, you've got to beat some of those teams that are either believed to be better than you or are certainly tough outs. There's no question about it. And who can you steal a game against? Can you steal one in Green Bay? That one's on the road. Can you steal one against the Rams? I don't think the Rams are that much better on paper than the Cardinals, but that's the thing too, is you got to win some games in your division. So I think it's important for them to be perhaps no worse than 3-4 when they get to that point. But who knows? I mean, you never know what's going to happen to other teams. You never know what's going to happen to the Cardinals in terms of injuries and things like that. But it's rough the things that they believe that they can do.
Howard, how do you read with Clayton Tune starting for the at least the first half against the Broncos? You look at him as the favorite as the backup, or allow him to get more reps and being, I guess, okay with Desmond Ridder as your backup? How do you read that whole scenario right now?
Well, I think, based on the 2 games and even based on training camp practices, it just looked like, Clayton Tune not only had a little bit better handle on the offense, but he's just a more accurate thrower consistently than Desmond Ridder. And now Ridder's a little bit better with his legs, and so that's something you have to look at. I think that, starting the game is saying, hey, let's start it off and let's see what you can do coming right out of the gate. And so I think right now at this moment, he's the favorite. I would think he would have to really lay an egg for him not to be the backup. And the question now, though, is, and this is where there's going to be tough decisions, and you only have 2 days to make them. A lot of teams this week are playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Cut down is next. You have to be down to 53 by next Tuesday, and they're playing on Sunday. So granted, I'm sure, obviously, they've had discussions about it. A lot of the decisions have been made or close to being made, but they've got to make them final in a short amount of time. And the question becomes, do they keep 3 quarterbacks just to be safe and just to have that protection? If you keep a 3rd quarterback, that means going a little bit, lower at another position. And that's where it gets pretty dicey when you come down to cut down day. And so I would think if they would cut a quarterback, they'll probably look for someone to bring onto the practice squad that can at least be that 3rd quarterback to have around. So that's going to be one of the interesting decisions that we'll be, looking for by next Tuesday, when the roster has to be down at the 53, because there's tough decisions at running back for a 4th or a 5th running back. For wide receiver, is there a 5th? Is there a 6th? How many corners do they keep? I mean, there's a lot of decisions that go into it now, and they're going to have to make those tough choices, obviously, by next Tuesday.
When you're in a situation where you have to evaluate all of that to help, and you just talked about 38 guys are going to be unemployed, how difficult is that for the coaching staff? I'm sure that there are a few people that they can just waive right away, but are they going to burn the candle late night trying to make a decision on who's in and who's out?
They might. I wouldn't be surprised on Monday to see some of those, quote, easy cuts, be made, and maybe get down from, the 91 to, 65, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But then those other tough ones. I mean, I was going through the roster on my own, and I counted up about 45 or 46 locks, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you say that, if I'm correct, that means, well, there's not that many other spots. Well, that's true. But then I counted up about 17 or 18 guys that you can make legitimate cases for to be one of those final 6 or 7. And, yeah, that's where it is tough. And then special teams enters into it. I mentioned running back. The fourth – is Michael Carter going to make this team? Is DJ Dallas going to? Dallas is a good special teams player and a potential kick return. Then you have a guy who I think has really impressed people this summer is the rookie undrafted free agent receiver, Xavier Weaver. He's made some nice catches. He's returned kicks. And so is it between him as an extra receiver and DJ Dallas as an extra running back to make the roster? Those are where all those decisions are. And so to answer your question, yeah, there could be some real late nights month. Because here's the thing, you have to have it done by 1 o'clock Pacific time. It's 4 Eastern, but it's 1 o'clock Pacific where you have to have all the moves in by. And so, yeah, there could be some late discussions going into Monday night for some of those close battles for not necessarily in your position, but comparing it to another position where you might feel like you have to keep, an extra player or two. Now, the one positive, guys, is that they don't have a bunch of guys injured that at positions that the guys are going to be on the team. When you have that, then all of a sudden, a lot of times you're forced to keep an extra guy at one of those positions just to have enough. And so they're not in that situation right now. So that could help it, but it's still a very difficult decision. And for a lot of guys that have shown that they're deserving of being on an NFL roster. Now, a bunch of them will end up on the practice squad, but that's presuming if you put them on waivers that no one else in the NFL claims them.
Exactly.
So those are all the factors that go into those hours after that final game to make the final call.
Howard, we appreciate you every week, man. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Howard Balzer joining us here. You should hear him all over the market as he does a tremendous job, so we appreciate him taking some time. H. Balzer 721. Now, I know you two guys aren't big coffee shop guys, right? It's not like I'll catch you guys at the coffee shop on your laptop working, maybe prepping for the show.
Just
that's
drive
not something
through.
You guys would do,
drive
right?
through, get it, and go.
So there's a coffee shop in New York that's been in the news lately because they're charging customers $10 a day to use their Wi-Fi.
What? Are they really?